I know there's a criticism out there that my administration has been spending with reckless abandon, pushing a liberal social agenda while mortgaging our children's future. The worst thing that we could do in a recession this severe is to try to cut government spending at the same time as families and businesses around the world are cutting back on their spending.
President Obama spoke to his critics directly earlier today, saying the last thing the government should be doing during a recession is cutting back on spending. And one of the critics of the president has been Republican Congressman Ron Paul. He joins us now live on the phone from Jackson, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Let me get your thoughts on what you heard today from the president, saying that they've got a plan. They've seen some success, but not out of the woods yet.
Boy, that's for sure. I think that we haven't even come close to having a policy that might get us out of the woods, because we're doing exactly what got us into the problem. We're spending more, regulating more, having new programs, printing more money, and they're trying to reinflate the bubble. And it's the bubble that was the problem in the first place. And he assured us today that he is never going to let this happen again, never have another bubble. And everything he said today, he was pushing, inflating the financial bubble. He even talked about how fractional reserve banking contributes to the bubble. So I don't think people can be very hopeful that this is going to solve our problem.
Well, let me look at some of the spending. You got the president just yesterday announcing the 2000th transportation project. He says funded by the stimulus. He also talked about government sector layoffs that were canceled as a result. Some of the police departments been able to keep on officers. And just yesterday it was Goldman Sachs who reported a surprising profit, saying that because of the help that they've received, they might be able to pay back the TARP funds they got from the government.
But the problem is nobody in Washington, a bureaucrat or a politician, isn't smart enough to know how to allocate capital. So if you take that and you see a so-called benefit, you don't know where that money might have gone elsewhere. It might have gone into something productive. So nobody knows whether building a highway is the most productive thing to do. Maybe it is to save the money and build a plant, and maybe it's to build a steel plant or something.
So since no one knows, why not try?
Why not try capitalism is what I'm saying. Why not try freedom and let the market work? We haven't allowed it to work for so many decades, but they're falling into the same trap of the 30s. They're blaming capitalism and free market choices for this problem, and that's why we can't expect it to work, because he claims that the worst thing they did in the Depression and all these other times was that we didn't spend enough money, and that's what prolonged the Depression. But wasn't
it spending for the war that ended it?
Pardon me?
But wasn't it spending for the war that helped this country during the Depression?
No, that's not true. Because at the end of the 30s, when the war was starting, it put people to work, but they were still very, very poor, and they had rationing. I remember those days, and the economy was very weak here at home. The people were suffering, and there was shortages. The Depression ended after the war. After the war, taxes were cut by 1/3, spending was cut by 2/3, and he's claiming never cut spending. The end of the Depression came with cutting spending and cutting taxes.
Let me get in real quick, because I want to ask you, there was this Gallup poll, Americans asking who are they confident in right now to fix this economy. 71% said President Obama, 51% said the Democratic leadership, 38% say Republican leadership. You bring up the war and getting people back to work. The president said more job losses and foreclosure on the way, but even with that bleak outlook, and you hit hard with the jobs issue, it looks like Americans still have confidence in this president over the Republican Party.
Well, of course, that doesn't prove a whole lot, because they had a lot of confidence in Roosevelt, and he prolonged the Depression. So I don't think that's very much of an argument at all. So the only thing that changes things is not personalities; it has to be economic policies and the ideas of freedom and free choices and sound money and the Federal Reserve. If we don't talk about that, you can't solve the problems. You just can't keep inflating the economy. economy through the creation of new money and credit. That's how we got into the mess. That's how the bubble was created. It finally collapsed. The market is saying you have to have a correction. Individuals have corrections, and he admitted it. That the people are knowing they're tightening their belts. They're looking for jobs. They're working hard, and they're saving their money.
Right.
That's what a country has to do as well. You can't start a war to get out of the depression. That scares the living daylights out of me.
I know there's a lot more to talk about here, and I wish we could continue. We're out of time, but thank you for making time for us today.
Thank you.